Hello, welcome back to Atelier RGS. I'm Rob Smith, and this week we're trying to turn some of this junky wood behind me into wood capping on some of the walls upstairs. Watch along and see how we get on. Okay, let's get started figuring out what we're going to build. So, challenges we face is obviously this isn't a straight line. We've got this little kink at the bottom, and there's quite a radius on there, so we're going to have to allow for that. But let's start measuring first of all. So the width, 158, and I'm thinking a centimetre overlap either side would look good. So that would be 178. Okay, and let's mark a line on here where we think the actual angle is going to be. So I think it's about there. We can only really measure on the bottom because the length of the top is a function of the thickness, obviously. So I've got plenty of opportunity to get this completely wrong. So that is 123 dead. 165, so allow a centimetre overlap, that's 175. So next thing is to figure out the angles. So what I'm going to use for that is this rather dinky little angle finder. Yeah, and each of these graduations is ½ degree, so it's reasonably accurate. So if I measure it here, that gives me, it's about 107.5. And this one, $165. Okay. So how thick do we want it? I think 30 mil. 25. No, let's make it 30 millimeters. So that high-level CAD drawing is what we're going to build. So now, to the Atelier, we don't have a moment to lose. So if you've been watching my videos, you've probably seen this massive pile of scrap lumber in the corner. So I want to try and use some of this wood and reclaim it. The bit I'd really like to use is this, which is an old beam taken out of the roof when we had some work done. But it might be too narrow. Let's have a look. Yeah, that is too narrow. That's a shame, because it might be oak, who knows. So what we're going to end up with is using this, which is plenty big enough and also came out of the building works. How thick is it? Okay, it's slightly under 30 mil. It's closer, it's about 27, so it's good enough. Let's pull that out and start chopping it up. Okay, I'm just going to cut off both ends of this plank in the chop saw because they're both pretty nasty, frankly. So I might as well just get rid of them. Okay, so the laser lines up pretty well with the marked line, so that's pretty square. I have to do this left-handed. Now we don't actually have enough wood to get both pieces out of this. We can get the two for the lower floor, but not for the smaller one upstairs. So that's a problem I will look at in a bit. So next job is to start squaring this up and making sure we've got the best wood we can out of it. So I think we want to start from this end because there's a knot here with a crack and stuff in it. There's more screw holes on this side than there is on this side. So what I'm going to do is run this through the table saw and just trim off the bare amount to get a square edge. So maybe 10 mil or something like that. And then I'll cut the actual width from that datum. So let's just double check that maths works out. So I want 178 out of this. I haven't got a huge amount to play with, 30 odd mil. So I want to take as little as I can off the right hand side and then cut it accurately on this side. Okay, so this is the table saw I'm going to use. It's an Evolution product. I've actually got a product test on it on the channel, so I'll put a link into that. Pretty nice machine. So what I'm going to do for the initial cut is, it's got this flip over gate that allows you to get nice and close to the blade. So I'm going to put that in, which is somewhat difficult to do with one hand. There we go. Then I'll wind that all the way into the blade. And then you've got some graduations on the end of the table here with a little red marker you may or may not be able to see. So I'm going to set that to 0 and lock it down. And then I'll wind it out. So I'm winding out the fence till it says, let's try and take just 5 centimetres, so 5 millimetres off. Might be a little, but a little difficult, but we'll give it a go. So this machine does have reasonably good dust extraction, so we'll turn that on. That's giving us a clean-ish edge. There is some, you can probably see there's some damage on it. Not great. Okay, if I take about 15 millimetres off this side, that will hopefully get me past all the screw holes and also but give me enough more to, a bit more to take off this side and hopefully end up with a clean edge. Otherwise we're going to have to go to plan B. So I will adjust this to 15 millimetres and run it through again. Okay, that looks like a good clean edge, pretty much. So let's see if we can get what it looks like when I cut the correct width. So again, let's adjust this. Okay, so I've adjusted it so we should have 178 mil, which is what the width we want to this side of the blade. So let's just double check that. And if it's a millimetre or so off, I don't suppose it really matters. Okay. Still a few blebs and blemishes. Just there's the worst. How far in that is. It is going to be visible. So I'm going to have to repair that. Okay, we can do that. So I guess the next thing to do is double check those angles for the cut. And I'm probably going to cut some test pieces on the chop saw just to make sure everything fits before we wreck this. Sounds like a plan. Okay, so looking at the angles we measured, the angle against the wall is 107 degrees. So if we take that off 90, we end up with 17.5. That's pretty easy. And then the angle between the bottom small piece and the sloping piece was 165. So if we take that off 180, we end up with 15. We divide that by 2, and guess what? We end up with 7.5. Okay, so we'll cut that into some scrap bits and then take them upstairs and see if they actually fit. So we've set 17.5 as close as I can on there. So theoretically, that's the right shape to the wall. And then we'll move this, unlock it. Move this to, what was it? 7.5. Everything's a half degree. Okay. This wants to go the same way. And then this one wants to be the other way up. Okay. So that should be a model of what we're trying to do. Let's go and see if it fits. Okay, moment of truth, hopefully. So that's the wall side. That's not bad at all. Okay. Now I'll cut this bit long so that I can adjust the joint slightly, and we're obviously going to have to sand this area a bit to make it sit together, but for an initial cut that's pretty good. Okay, so we'll do the wall cut, the 17.5 degrees at this end, and if I take it down to here I can take out some of the damage in the wood. So I'll just give myself a guideline there. And snip it off. Now we get to try out the real stuff. Okay, let's see how this works. I've done the same thing with the scrap wood to get around that radius. So this is the top bit. Fits into the wall nicely. Bit of a bow on it. And then just the lower piece. Okay. That fits. So when I fasten it down, I'm going to have to screw it quite firmly into the structure here. This is brick built, so that shouldn't be a problem. Cool. Okay, so far so good. So next job is repairing these bits of damage on the edge. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut out a minimum amount I can do to actually remove it, and then just glue in some of the offcuts actually, so that the grain matches, and then we can sand it all flat. Okay, so we'll put this chap in the vise, and we can then just start working on this edge. I think that's all we need to worry about. Yep, the rest is pretty good. Let's put a bit of tissue in here to keep the wood from getting oil on it, so that we can use these small bits, these offcuts, because they should be a perfect match for the grain. The slope's about right there, so and the grain is a bit sloped there, so I'm just trying to find a piece that has a similar, yeah, that's a bit, has the right slope, but it's horrible. There we go, this looks like it. Perfect. Okay. So first thing to do is cut out these bits. So probably a router would be the best way to do that. Okay. So just set the depth by eye. Do it. I bet there's a million people shouting at the... a million people. I bet there's 7 people shouting at the screen. Do it this way, you fool. Here we go. Well, that's not too bad. So let's do the same on the other side. And then we can just get rid of the bit in the middle. So it's about there. Okay, hopefully you can see that's a pretty good fit. Slightly proud, so we can sand it down after the glue's set. And now we just do the same on this little chap. That probably just needs a single pass and a very small piece to go in there. May actually oversize it just for ease, but let's see how we get on. Use the same eyeball method. Feel free to comment and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I make no pretense of being a carpenter. A little bit of persuasion, that should work. Okay. So I'm going to use this West System epoxy to glue this in, and for the other stuff I'm doing. Nice, easy to mix. If you put the right plungers in, you just do one equal number of pushes and Bob's your uncle. So I'm using the faster setting stuff, the 205 hardener. So that's fully hard in about 5 hours, so it's not exactly super rapid, but it's handleable before then, and I can always put a bit of warmth on it, get it going. And what I will do is put a little bit of filler in with it. not much. You can actually turn this into quite a thick gloop, but I don't want it too thick. I just want it to be able to fill any small gaps. So it's not super thick. You can keep adding the filler until, you know, it's as thick as you want, but I think that'll do for what we're doing here today. I'm not going to worry about it too much spilling out of the joint because I've got a lot of sanding to do on these. And then we're staining it and all the rest of it. Sure the wood lines up as the grain lines up as best I can. Wipe off the excess. Usually a good idea to actually use gloves with this, but I forgot. So I want to put a clamp on that if I can. So this is a bit over the top for what we need it for, but I haven't got anything in between ones that are too small and this chap. So we will just use what we've got. Okay. Right, while we're waiting for that glue to set enough to sand, let's see if we can find a piece of wood to do the upstairs bit. So I think the best alternative we've got is this old shelf. It's plenty wide enough, it's made of multiple blocks, but I think I can get a piece that's just one of them, I think. And it's slightly thinner than the piece I've got over there, but that hasn't been sanded. This needs less sanding, so it'll come out roughly the same. And it's long enough, so let's give that a go. So measuring it out, the best solution is actually to try and use this centre section. There's a couple of knots in it, but I think we can live with that. Right, so to the table saw. Okay, I've set the saw up just to trim off the right-hand block. It's just about on that joint, allowing for the blade thickness. So let's whiz that through. Okay, let's see how this fits. Try it down when it's that way. Okay, width feels about right. It's a little bit long. I wonder how I managed to do that. Yeah, it's about 25mm too long. Never mind. Okay, don't go away. I'll be right back. Let's see if this works. Parfait. Okay, happy with that. So I guess it's lots of sanding now. Okay. Relocated out into the garage, I tend to do most of the dusty work out here to try and keep the main workshop clean. So I just want to level off these blocks I glued in I'm going to use the plane to do that, see if that works. So here goes. There we go. Pretty good. A little bit of a gap there, but hopefully it won't show too much. Cool. So now it's just lots and lots of sanding. So I think we'll cue the music and get on with it. Well, this is a bit of a disaster. This wood's got woodworm. So you can see there, in here. I was sanding away a little while to just see if I could get to the bottom of it, but it seems to be pretty much everywhere in the wood. So that is going on the scrap pile. So we'll have to find some more wood to do this project. I can finish up on the top one, but yeah, bit of a waste of time, that one. Never mind. Okay, so this is the wood for the banister on the tops floor. So it doesn't need as much sanding, so I'll put a finer grit in there, and then we'll probably switch over to the orbital sander for the last bit. So this is 80 grit, so not that fine. Pretty well, no woodworm at least. So there's a little bit of a void in the knot at this end, but pretty much nothing over here, and we're going to wax polish it anyhow, so I could probably fill it full of wax, frankly. So yeah, came pretty good. Next job is to figure out how to fasten it. So I want to actually screw this down to the bulkhead upstairs. I was thought about just gluing it, which would probably be fine, but I just have to, as it's at the top of the stairs and, you know, people might be grabbing onto it, I don't want it to come off and then go down the stairs. So screwing it through means obviously I've got holes in it, which will look terrible. So what I'm going to do is use this cunning little bit, which drills a plug out of a piece of wood, which you can then fit in above the screw head. So you just sink the screw head a bit into the wood, fit the plug into the top, glue it, let the glue dry, cut it off, sand it flat, and no one's any the wiser, hopefully. See how it goes. First of all, make sure you don't do it in the bit of wood you actually want. So here's an offcut. I'll do it right at the end, so I've got the rest of the woods preserved. And that's what you get. I'll get maybe 4. I'm probably only going to use 2 screws, but cool. So you got 4 there. That should be plenty. Okay, now all I need is a drill bit the same size and we should be ready to start going. Okay, let's mark this out and drill the holes. Make sure it's the right way up. So let's guesstimate the centre. So this has ended up around 95, so that's 47.5. Okay. Lost my pencil line. There we go. Cool. 760. So 760 divided by 4 is 190. So if we bring that in 190 from the end, I think that'll look about right. There we go. Nails I'm going to use, screws I'm going to use are probably these. Yep, those. So I'm going to clearance hole for those. So that'll do, 5mm drill will do nicely. And I need to drill 12mm for the plugs. Hope this fits in this drill. It does. And I don't want to go too deep with this. Just enough to fit this plug in really. So I shall mark that. That's plenty. Yeah, that fits quite nicely. Right, I think we've got everything we need here. If not, I shall be going up and downstairs a lot. See you up there. Okay. Get this lined up. Looks pretty even. Well, it's at least as even as the little wall it's sat on. mark where the holes need to be. So these are the right size raw plugs for the screws I'm using. And I need an impact drill bit. I think these are 5.5, but I might be wrong. Might be 6s. 6. Do you know how to make drill bits last longer? Put them back in the box as soon as you finish with them. Otherwise you lose them. Maybe that's just me. Okay. Hammer drill. I think these in France they use these sort of hollow ceramic bricks for a lot of the, I guess, non-structural walls. So I think that's what I've hit into. Oops. Seems fairly firm, which is good. I use too much glue. And I put a bit, you saw I probably put a bit of masking tape around the top of the wall to try and avoid any glue getting stuck and oozing out and getting stuck on the outside. There we go. Got them lined straight up, look at that. That feels solid as a rock. Excellent. A couple of little daubs of wood glue. It needs to go down a bit more. Okay. I left the tape on deliberately to try and reduce the amount of wood that goes, the glue that goes on the top of the wood, just to reduce the amount of sanding required. was once told a charming little ditty by a friend of mine who worked restoring wooden aeroplanes. Tiny, if you're there, hello. It goes like this. If your joint it does not fit, fill with glue and bits of shit. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Right, that's as far as we can go tonight. In the morning I can cut off the protruding bits of the plugs, sand it, then we can stain it, and we're going to actually wax polish these bits of wood. Obviously I've got to get another piece of wood from downstairs and redo everything I did the other day. Hopefully I've still got the templates, which will save an awful lot of time. But that's it for tonight. I'll see you once I've bought some more timber, I guess. Hi, it's the next day. I managed to get out at lunchtime and grabbed me a nice piece of oak. So we're going to build it out of that. I kept the rather nasty wormy bits to use as templates before they go on the skip tomorrow. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm just going to stick you on time lapse. You don't really need to see everything in detail again. And I'll bring you back when we've got to where we got to yesterday. Hopefully without the worms. I think I'm going to call it for tonight. So we've got a little bit further than we got with the wormy wood, as we'll call it now, I think. So we've got it's all cut out, used the previous version as a template, so that saves some time. And I've drilled the holes ready for the screws and for the plugs, which are also cut. The second piece, I'm actually going to fit the larger piece first, and then just butt this up against it, and I can make any adjustments to make that a good fit and then trim it to length. So I'll drill that. I'll probably just put one screw in this, I think. I'll drill that once I've got the final length and everything else. But yeah, good progress tonight. I just don't want to carry on because I don't want to be drilling into walls with the neighbours next door when it's getting a little late and they've got a young child. So I'll see you tomorrow. So we've got the top bit fitted, just the same as upstairs really. And now I just want to make sure that this lower piece fits. And it's not bad. Slight step there, so I could probably round this piece in a bit. But what I can see is I've got enough length, line it up again, enough length that I can actually cut this back a bit and lose the knot. So I'm going to do that. So first step, I'm going to add maybe a degree maybe to the cut, because there's a bit of a gap there. Is that on both sides? No, it's not, it's just on one. Okay, well, we'll do it anyhow. In fact, it's the middle. There's a bit of a rock on the middle there. That's bizarre. We'll just cut it again and see where we are. So I cut it the same measurement as before. I'll round the bottom a little bit and then we'll come back and have another check. So that is where's it gone? 8.5 degree angle that way. Okay. plug it in. It's got rid of the knot. Okay, let's see how this fits. Just look at that slight rock in the middle. So I'll sand a bit off the bottom there just to see how that fits, and then we may have to do a little bit of fine tuning. But it's pretty good. I mean, pretty narrow gap there. It's just that little bit just there that concerns me. There'll be a few more backs and forwards on this, I think. Okay, happy with that. See, that edge is closed up a bit, top remains fine, and it's level. Okay, so let's just mark that. So we'll just add 10mm to that line and we're good. So cut to length and sanded, still fits. That's going to look pretty good. I'm tempted just to glue this, but no, let's put a screw in it. I'm going to put tape right along the edge as well, because I'm going to glue the two bits of wood together with epoxy. And if any uses out, I don't want to have to spend a month trying to sand it off. Okay. Okay, so just a single screw in the middle. This piece is almost square, so not quite. Okay, there we go. Okay. Right, I'm using some West System epoxy glue to join the bits of wood together. bulked it out with a bit of their packing powder. I think it's colloidal silicon or something. I have no idea what that is, but just makes it a bit thicker and a bit more gap filling. The usual no-nails equivalent for the actual construction-y bit. Just a bit of that. Okay. Okay, seems to be okay. So all that's left is the third type of glue, just standard wood glue, to put the little plugs in. And then it's just waiting for it all to dry. And I think that's it for now. So let's let the glue set. Cut these off and the ones upstairs. That one will need staining. This one probably won't because it's closer to the colour I want. And then it's boiled linseed oil and then wax polish. And then we should be done. Okay, next step is just trimming off these excess on these plugs. I'm just going to use this rather tatty old razor saw for that. And then sanding them down, and then we're going to, for this floor only, we're going to put a light stain on it. Downstairs I don't think needs it. So away we go. Follow that up with a little bit of stain, applied very carefully so we don't stain the walls. Exactly the same process, minus the wood stain. that's it for tonight. Hopefully tomorrow we can get the boiled linseed oil on here and upstairs, and then it's just polishing and we're done. So see you then. The wood stain on this one's dried. It raised the wood a little bit, so I did a very light sand so it's nice and smooth again. The next step is soaking in some linseed oil. The best stuff to use is boiled linseed oil because it cures quicker. I couldn't get that locally, and getting it shipped is a bit expensive, so I'm just going to use the standard stuff, just cold pressed linseed oil. Reason for using oil rather than just using wax, which you can do, is it soaks into the wood and protects it more and stops the wax just kind of sits on the top, whereas this gets in and seals the wood and stops it staining later on, I guess. So I'm not too worried about the fact I haven't got the boiled linseed oil. I'm just going to put a very light coating on this because it's interior, it's not getting exposed to the weather. And then we let it dry, cure, and then it's the wax polish. So that's what we do now. One thing to be wary of with linseed oil is that the rags you use to apply it can spontaneously combust, which is fun. So the way to combat that is really soak them in water. So that's what I'll be doing when I finish this. So that soaks quite nicely into the wood. Brings out the grain as well a little bit more than wax on its own will, apparently. So like I say, just a really light coat. And I might come back in a few hours after it's had a bit of time to soak in and just see if I can sort of buff off any excess, just to try and speed up the drying process. Because I would like to get the wax polish on and have this finished. There we go. That's brought the wood grain up on this one beautifully. So that's all I can do until the oil goes off. So now just remembering to put that rag in a bucket of water, and I'll see you when it's dry. Right, getting into the home straight. Just going to put the wax on. I'm using this stuff, which is a clear or colourless carnauba wax, whatever that is. It's basically what I had lying around. So you just put it on with a cloth, wait 2 to 4 hours, and then buff it up. It says with a brush, but I'll probably use a cloth because I haven't got a brush. Well, it's been a few hours, so let's just see how it polishes off. Well, overall, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's a bit of a shame we couldn't make it all out of reclaimed wood, but turns out I found a supplier of some pretty nice oak, so swings and roundabouts, I guess. If you liked this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel more, please check out our shop. We've got t-shirts like this one and a bunch of other stuff. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.